We started out with 4 big hitters. I Shall Not Remove, Little Delroy Wilson, Lion of Judah, young Delroy Wilson. And then we played Joe Leagues, another Delroy Wilson. And we finished up with Andy and Joey with You're Wondering Now. And if you're wondering where that song came from, it is actually used as a theme song on that PBS show, Death in Paradise. So if you're a fan, that's the song, and that's a Studio One production. Actually became a very, very big hit again when that series started in London a couple of years ago. You said the song is actually called Joe Legs, and Jamaica man have the term him say you have too much legs in other thing, you know. So that's essentially where that come from. But this was Delroy Wilson, as I say, God, at around what 13, 14 years old. Yep. And you know, it was not unusual for the singers, musicians, if you will, to be starting at that early age. Last week we in part 1 of this program, Dr. Howard was on, and he made the point that some of these artists, and Delroy Wilson was one of them, who basically was handed over to Dad by his mother, in terms of, you know, as a father figure, if you will. And so it sort of explained his early beginnings and his entrenchment in the music. Right. Granted, after that, he would have left and he made his way over to Bonnie Lee. But today the focus is on Coxsone and his contribution to the development of Jamaican music. Now, you touched the ska era, and as the music shifted over time, you know, the rock steady era wended its way. Granted, at this time, Coxsone wasn't a big hitter in the rock steady era, but he nevertheless held his own. Not only did he hold his own, Richie, he created, along with, of course, the artists, rhythms that are still serving us today. The
test of time. And we're going to touch some of those rhythms today in terms of some of the songs that stood up. But, you know, to Coxsone's credit, if you look back at the music, and again, we're touching on that ska era, Toots and the Maytals, Stranger Cole, Delroy Wilson, Joe Higgs from the duo like Higgs and Wilson,
and the Heptones,
right? All made their start with Coxsone during this period, and so, you know, the foundation of the music. Coxsone was there at the beginning. He made his imprint, and we're going to focus heavily on that today. One of the features of the Coxsone production, 62 rather, he opened his own studio after purchasing the property at 13 Brentford Road, and became, as it were, the first black Jamaican to own a piece of the industry, this newly developed industry. Remember, in the 1959, 1960, you were looking at people like this, like Stanley Motor started the recording, right, and they would have moved eventually to premises where they opened up Federal Recording Studio and basically established a pressing plant and studio facilities. But, you know, these were the traditional Middle Eastern, Jamaican, brown-skinned business people. But Coxsone made the plunge. Granted, around the same time to Duke Reid had started his own Treasure Isle thing. But today our focus is on Coxsone. He established Studio One, and one of the first things that he did is that he, apart from selecting the musicians, he put his musicians on retain, well, he paid them a wage. Right. So they were no longer out on the road hustling as session musicians. So he could guarantee that he had a studio band. And it is from that studio band that
you know, a lot of the big hits
rhythms came
that you are going to feature. I think last week we touched on a few from.
We touched on a few last week, but
right.
I would just like to play 2 songs that bridge the gap between ska and rocksteady, and then we're going to roll into that.
There you go.
Hi there. If you enjoyed that clip, go on over to our website at yardmedia.com, where you can watch the entire broadcast at your leisure. And while you're there, why don't you check out our other reggae music features? And before you leave, pick up some of our Jamaican reggae merchandise, and hey, don't forget to tell your friends.
My name is Garth, otherwise known as Big G.
My name is Richie Blackford.